What's up, everybody? Sorry about the rough transition there. I had it in studio mode and turned it off before going back to the previous slide. But anyways, how'd you like my little Rickroll? I couldn't resist. I haven't done one in a while, so. Anyways, welcome to the stream. I do have some new stuff for you guys. I don't think I really have any rants today. Not too much going on. I do have my Ender 2 working pretty well. Ender 2 Pro, I should say. I do have a question because I was gonna go buy someone else's flex plates for the 2 Pro because we stopped carrying the 165 by 165 plates, but turns out my mic's a little hot apparently. But turns out that there's literally like one company that makes those plates after we stopped carrying them. So I'm probably going to get them back in. I just want to send out a survey and see if anybody else is interested in that particular size flex plate. The closest size I have right now is the 180 by 180 for the King Rune series, which could work on here. It's close enough. I think the stock one... I don't have my tape measures downstairs. This is the stock floppy one that Creality includes, which we all know doesn't last very long. So I want to get something else on here. The only thing is I have to have a minimum quantity to order plate sizes in order to get pricing that makes sense to actually carry. So I'm just curious if any of you guys in the chat watching now would be interested in the 165 by 165 size Easy Flex, because we did have them at one point. I have some older ones floating around here for one of my other machines, but I do not have any in stock because we discontinued that when the Ender 2 was discontinued and they just weren't a very popular seller. So I don't know how many guys bought the Ender 2 Pro. I can confidently say I'm pretty happy with this machine. My main gripe on it is the proprietary power supply design. The power supply luckily did have good grounding. They actually went overkill with the grounding on this printer, which I'm happy with. Like even the hot end itself is grounded with a dedicated wire. So I'm pretty impressed that they did a good job on it. The other complaint I would have is that it's got a 5-pin stepper motor connection, which is the same as a normal one, except the extra pin is for a ground, which could easily be, cut off and, spliced in if you want to change the board. Cause like I could actually put an easy board in there if I wanted to. I just have to change the motor connectors. And that's about it. But yeah, so, but overall, the only thing I've done to this so far, I took the plastic extruder off. I put our aluminum one on here. We all know that the Creality ones, over time, they just crack. I just preemptively replace it. And it's nice to do that and easy because it's the same steps per millimeters as stock extruder. And then you can see the blue here. I put our tough tube on here. I didn't think that was worth showing on stream, so I just did it. But this is the benchy that came off it. The only modifications to it are our firmware and like I said, change out the extruder. The stock one was working fine, like I said, just preemptively, and change out the tubing. So I mean, I'm pretty impressed with this. The layer fan on this, even though it's a single one, is actually done properly. I would argue that the Ender 2 Pro has better stock cooling for layer fan than like the CR10 or the Ender 3 or Ender 5, like that same design where they just have that fan mounted on the side with a general duct blowing air in the general direction. But yeah, I really like this printer. I really do. I think for people that are like either on a lower budget, because these are about $160, $170. I would imagine they'll probably show up on sale at some point for even less than that. But in general, this is a nice printer, and I do like all the touches. I do think this does warrant the Pro naming, because, you know, and I'll tell you why, because it has tensioners that are adjustable on the X and Y. They've got a lot of extra plastics on here that just give it an overall better appearance. So, you know, this is just my opinion on it. I do really like this machine. And it comes with a standard 128/64 screen. Yeah, so I do like the Ender 2 Pro. It's a very good successor to the Ender 2. If you guys don't remember, the original Ender 2, that was a printer that came with an 8-bit board, and it didn't even have a layer fan on it. So you had no layer fan cooling. I actually had 4 of those, and we were using them in the print farm, and we just didn't have a use for them. We prefer larger machines so we can do, you know, larger print jobs and get more prints off of one printer. I don't care if it takes longer, because, you know, we'll queue up prints overnight, and the next day we'll come in and, you know, remove the prints. So the Ender 2 Pros weren't, or the original Ender 2s were good machines once you added a layer fan, but for us, it's not like a big deal, because we just added on. But I do like the Ender 2 Pro a lot. I really don't have any other complaints other than their power supply selection. And like I said, those 5-pin stepper cables can be kind of a pain if you are changing out the board to something else. But, you know, if you can handle cutting and splicing some wires, it's not bad. It's a great little printer, I think, for people to start out with. And the build quality is good on it. So, Top at Waffles in the chat. Thanks for the Ender 2 printers. Yeah, I think I either gave those to Doug. Doug is my brother, aka Top at Waffle. And he prints a lot of small stuff for his Etsy shop, and I either gave them to him or gave them to him stupid cheap. We had 4 of them. So, but yeah, they're good. They're good little machines, and I think this is nice. I like the spool holder design off the side here. It doesn't take up much desk space. Like, it's literally sitting right here. But yeah, it's a good little successor to the Ender 2. Definitely a lot better than the original Ender 2. There's one thing I was going to say, and I'm kind of blanking out on it. For some reason. What was I going to say? I was going to say something about the printer. I'll circle back to that if I figure it out. But yeah, I see people putting questions in the chat. You guys have to put !Q in front of your question for the bot to pick it up. We are using the Streamlabs chat bot to collect questions. So if you want me to answer your question, I'm only looking at my file here that the chatbot puts the questions into. So if you want to have something answered, then you have to do that. It's just something we do because otherwise it gets lost in the chat. So I don't have to worry anymore about chat jumping because the chatbot also puts all my chat stuff that's coming through the live chat in a nice screen here. So if I'm answering your questions, sometimes I'll ask for further information. So just keep an ear out for your name. And there should only be a slight delay. I think I'm checking my stream settings. We're using low latency. So that should be about 10 seconds from the time I speak to you, or speak into my computer here to the time it gets to your computer. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this, a little trick. If you're watching a live stream and you want to get caught up to the soonest or to the most recent point, if you hit the little gear icon on YouTube and you go to playback speed and you set that from normal to, like, 1.5 or 2x, it will then speed up and, eat up through that buffer that your computer has. So you have less of a delay between the time when I say something, on my end until it shows up on your screen there. So I do that a lot when I'm watching live streams to kind of get caught up if it's, ends up being behind, because I've noticed that's a thing. So anyways, I do have some stuff to show you guys. I try to keep my promises with things. So I have a board over here, and I know a lot of you guys like these, so I did actually purchase one of these. This was not sent to me by Big Tree Tech, but I did get one, and I did get firmware working on it. I do actually have a slight rant. This reminded me of what I do have a slight rant for. So this firmware is actually posted on our GitHub in the bug fix branch, or not the bug fix, sorry, that's Marlin. We call our like what would be equivalent to bug fix our testing. So 2.0.x-texting. You can see here the version number is 2.4. So we will have firmware out for this board shortly, just like the other ones that they put out. So and here's where I'm going to go in the rant thing. So The example configurations provided by Marlin for this board and by Big Tree Tech for this board do not actually compile. I had to dig through, I think it was either a Facebook post or some random Marlin issue queue to get it to compile. And what was happening was it was throwing errors about the Trinamic UART control, because this does have TMC 2209s on it. And it wouldn't compile, and their official documentation has no information on it. Their official firmware from their own GitHub does not compile. What I end up having to do is set the addresses for the X, Y, Z, and E drivers to actually get it to compile. So if you bought this board and you're trying to use Marlin as it comes, you know, with the example configurations, and or just trying to use Big Tree Tech's own firmware that they provide, it will not actually compile. But I already sorted that out in our firmware branch. If you guys do want to try this before it's released, I'm pretty confident that this is, you know, basically done. You can go ahead and go into our Discord server, and I did post in the VIP lounge. If you guys have access to that, you can get access by just, what's the word I'm looking for, that by just becoming a YouTube member or leveling up in the server. Leveling up means just participating and helping out. Our server as a level system. Or you can also nitro boost our server. So I do use Discord quite frequently. That's really the only like social media thing I frequent. But I did post a zip file in there with this firmware build on here that's packaged up just like our other ones. The other thing I noticed on here is that on a couple other boards, I can't remember which ones. I think it was maybe the 1.2. I think it was a 1.2. They actually changed their MOSFET brand to, I'm going to say the name wrong, Hisai. It's actually the same kind of MOSFET brand that we use on our easy boards. They're really good Chinese-made MOSFET. They're high reliability. But then I see here they went back to these Winsock chips. These are the ones that just kind of are just lower quality. They've had issues with high failure rates, and I'm kind of disappointed to see that these are back on these boards, because it's like, oh cool, they're learning and putting better quality parts. But yeah, I don't know if they're doing this to save money, but it was kind of disappointing. I was like, man, because to be completely honest with you guys, if Big Tree Tech released a product that actually did not have a high failure rate, I would carry them. And I've said this before, the problem is, if I'm selling products, I have to, one, use them myself and be comfortable with using them myself. I'm not comfortable with a lot of their boards. And two, as a company, if we sell a product, we actually will warranty things and stand behind what we sell. And I'm not comfortable selling products with high failure rates because then it's going to eat into the cost for us when it comes to shipping and replacing the product. And that's just not something we want to deal with. You know, Creality's boards have been very reliable, especially for their price point. I wish I could say the same about the BTT boards, but, you know, they're just not there in my opinion. But, I mean, I will say it's a nice looking board. You know, the thing here, and I will say, since I actually have it here, it's kind of a giveaway that they cheaped out on the circuit board again because they put this giant heatsink on here. Yeah, it looks cool. It looks flashy. And to the, you know, the uninformed, it's like, oh, look, it's nice big cooling. Well, you wouldn't need the heatsink if you designed your board correctly. So our easy board here, this is our easy board 2, just for a comparison, because they're you know, basically they're the same footprint. So these two boards are designed to go in the same kind of printers and same application. And these have the same driver. So we have 2209s on our easy board 2. They have 2209s on their SKR E3 series, the mini. So the V1, V1.2, V2, and now the V3. But as you see, we don't have any heat sinks on this because the PCB itself is a heat sink, and that's how Trinamic designs their drivers, is to sink heat through the back of the through the bottom of the chip. So, and you see here, we even have on the silkscreen on the board, do not add heat sinks, because we had people putting heat sinks on them and not paying attention and having the heat sink contact the components around the drivers and let out the magic smoke. So, you know, looks like a gamer printer board. Yeah, this does have a very like gamery motherboard feel to it if you guys are into PC building. So we'll see. I don't know if I'm gonna stress test it. I just got this to actually test the firmware out on. I am really surprised they were advertising this chip here. This is an STM32 chip, so they're not using those GD STM32 clones. And I looked this up. I was expecting it to be like really fast, but this is actually, I think it's either 62 or 68 megahertz. Someone can, I need to Google it just so I have the correct information. Someone, oh my God, he said it was 62 megahertz when it's really 68. My memory is not that great, okay? I'll be the first to admit it. So G0, B1, RET6. So this is a 512K STM32 part number, and I think it's 68 megahertz, I want to say. I'm on DigiKey right now. Oh, sorry, 64 megahertz. So this chip is actually a slower speed than the ones that were on the prior boards. So they were using the STM32F103. I'm going to make sure I look this up and give you the correct information. So the previous versions of this board, so the V1, 1.2, or in the 2.0, those use the STM32F103 RCT6, and those were a 72 megahertz clock speed. Just for comparison, our Easy board here, the version 1 used a NXP processor at 120 megahertz, and we are using the F4 series on the new one here, and these are running at 168 megahertz, I believe. So we're over twice the CPU speed on this board here. So STM32F405, yeah, I know this one. I don't know why I need to look at the chip, but I'm going to just double check. I'm pretty sure ours is at 168 megahertz. So over twice the speed for the CPU speed on the Easy board V2. Yeah, so this is a 168 megahertz chip, and this has 1 whole mega flash. The Big Tree Tech one only has half a mega flash, which is perfectly adequate for Marlin. The 256K ones are where you start getting into the territory of running out of space as you start turning on a bunch of features. So, you know, I was hoping that these would have a better brand of MOSFETs. I'm not a fan of these. I've seen too many high failure rates with them, and there's other people that have had high failure rates with them as well. So, but like I said, it's a nice looking board, and I will give them one actual shout out here for finally figuring it out. It only took them like 4 or 5 board revisions. So if I plug my USB cable in here and I remove the power connector, you can see it actually shuts off. So they finally properly isolated the USB 5-volt rail from the 5-volt regulator here. So I don't know if there's a jumper to like set it like on our Easy board here. We have a jumper here to be like, where are we getting power from? Is it going to come from the is a 5-volt coming from the USB, or is it coming from the onboard regulator? I don't see one in here. I did look at their documentation, but I would rather have this where it doesn't power the board at all than where the previous versions, they backfed the 5-volt through all the rest of the power circuitry, and you could get, you know, 2 to 3 volts output on your power supply input, which is not good because it would also then feed your fans and stuff, and you could potentially draw too much current from your computer and then short the board out, or short your USB port out if the overcurrent protection doesn't properly work. So they did fix a couple of things on here. So I don't know if I'm going to put this in an actual machine or if it's just going to go in my bin of boards to test firmware on. But yeah, so if you guys have one of these, you want to test out the firmware, just jump in our Discord server, and it will be, actually, I'm just going to upload the file to our, let me see here. I'm going to upload it to the firmware channel so you guys don't have to be in the VIP section. Let's see, SKR Mini. I'm trying to find it. I know I posted it in the lounge like last night, I want to say. So I expect some of you guys in the chat watching have this board on hand. So if you want to test out our Unified with it, then you can do that. That'd be helpful because I don't feel like putting this in an actual printer. I just want to make sure it flashed, make sure the SD card read, that the drivers were communicating. So all the basic stuff passed. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and upload that to the firmware channel on our Discord. I can't type and talk at the same time. There we go. So it should be in there now. There we go. Anyways, let's go ahead and look at the questions here. We've got 19 questions in the queue, and the first one is Hybotics. He said, my Discord account was hacked. I was banned from the TH3 Discord server. I now have 2FA on my account, which requires me on my phone. May I please get back on your Discord server now? I can check. I literally have it up here. Let's see. Are you lying to me? Did you get banned because you were being an idiot? Be honest with me now. I know we all make stupid decisions, okay? I'm not one to talk. Ban reason, suspected spam. Okay. So that checks out. I lifted the ban. You should be good. So, anyways. Let's see. So, those of you guys, I see people say again how to ask a question right here. Post it in chat by typing exclamation point your question. So, all right. I answered Hybotics. Ender 6 upgrade status. Any chance for a dual Z mod? Don't have plans for a dual Z mod. Honestly, I haven't had issues with the bed sagging on mine. When I did, it was because the rollers were not properly adjusted. So, you know, I have not messed with adding a second Z motor to it. It wouldn't hurt, but I don't know how popular that would be, if it'd be worth actually putting the time and effort into it, because it's actually a pretty decent machine. That's probably one of my, it's in my top 3 favorite machines right now. So in terms of like larger machines, the Ender 6, the Ender 5 Plus are definitely up there. If we're talking about more expensive machines, I've been very happy with the Daedalus. If you guys are looking for something more, you know, commercial grade, that's just going to work and, you know, doesn't require a lot of tinkering and mods, I can definitely recommend the Daedalus. Joe owns Project R3D. He's a buddy of mine, and I met him through the printing community. He's actually about an hour from me, and I've been very happy with that printer. That printer's been a damn workhorse. I've been putting it through its paces for over a year now. But understand the price point's high, but, you know, it's for a particular market segment where, you know, you just want to take it out of the box, plug it in, and start printing with it. So it's been a very good machine. In terms of small machines, the Ender 2 Pro, definitely high up there on my list. Overall, if somebody asked me what printer would I recommend, would you get if it's your first machine, I've still been recommending the Ender 3 Pro. I still think that's a really good price point to build volume, to features, and upgradability in terms of printers out there. The close second to that would be the Solval SV01. I really like that machine. I know it's a little bit higher of a price point than the Ender 3 Pro, but not by much. And that's a really nice machine too. We have 2 of those in our print farm, and they earn their keep for sure. So let's see here. Peter Hansen, try my first carbon fiber print tonight. Any tips? Make sure you have a nozzle that's going to stand up to abrasives. Other than that, in my experience with carbon fiber is just make sure you have a nozzle that's not going to get chewed out. And that's about it. You know, play with your settings and treat it just like any other filament. You might want to keep it dry too, because it does tend to pick up more moisture than other filaments. But other than that, just make sure you have the right nozzle. If you're looking for a cheaper style nozzle, it's not going to get eaten out by that. There's you know, hardened steel or steel nozzles. We carry those in our shop for multiple different hot ends. If you want something a little more universal, because the problem with the steel nozzles I found is that while they do resist the abrasives and they're inexpensive, the problem is that they do require a higher temperature, and sometimes you get more stringing. Now, this is just my personal experience. I don't know if anybody else can chime in and confirm, but that's one of the downsides to them. But they are cheap, and if you're printing abrasives like glow-in-the-dark or carbon fiber or glass fill, they do stand up to those materials in terms of not getting their diameter reamed out too much. Me personally, I've been using our Easy Flow nozzles, which are a copper plate. It's a copper nozzle with like this hard nickel plating on it, and those are what I put in my machines because they're just universally working well in terms of I don't have to worry about, you know, bumping my temps up. I don't have to worry about extra stringing. I can just throw whatever in there and not have to worry about the nozzle getting chewed up. And I've printed a lot of carbon fiber prints through our Easy Flow nozzles with no change in the diameter. So, but you're talking a $15 nozzle versus like $2 or $3 for a steel. So, you know, if you're don't mind swapping nozzles out, the steel ones are good to have on hand for when you need to do that one print. Me, I prefer to just throw something in there that I don't have to worry about it. I know which printers in my office here have my Easy Flows in there, so if I need to print something that's abrasive, I just throw it on that printer. You know, otherwise, most of my other machines just have standard brass nozzles. Most of our print farm has standard brass nozzles. You know, hopefully that answers your question. All right, so Scratch Toys asks, do stepper motors have a tendency to get easily damaged if the wrong pinout is used between the stepper motor and the driver? In my experience, no. Basically, what happens is if you just don't have the right, if you don't have the right pinout, either it's going to do nothing or they just kind of shake and like have like a little seizure. It's just in your stepper motor, you have two wraps of wire called coils. If you miswire them, you're basically going to be only partially energizing one of the two coils, and if you tell it to move, it's just going to kind of shake because the other pin usually then gets connected to the other output side of the driver. So your driver has two coil outputs, and if like one of the wires flip, you have this weird kind of cross-talk going on. But I've never had one. I've never had one break on me. They're pretty robust little things. They're, like I said, they're just coils of wire, and you energize them and they make the the motor shaft turn. So let's see. So Mike V said he's got CR10S with the Easy board, Easy Light V2. Well, Easy Light. Oh, if you have a V2, that's just an Easy board. I just want to be clear. So there was only one. The Easy board, the Light naming got dropped because we added a lot more features into the V2, and just want to make it simple. But he says he has version 2.38, and now the X-axis crashing to the left while homing. And when purging for a few terms, I use the same parameters I had in 2.36a. So if it's crashing to the left when it's homing, then that usually means that your end stop is not registering. You can check your end stop output with the M119 command. As far as I know, there haven't been any changes to the end stop handling in like between 2.36a and 2.38. I can pull up the GitHub, but I have the V2 and the V1 and a bunch of other boards running our newer firmware. I actually have my Ender 5 Plus running the 2.39 that I pushed out a couple days ago and haven't had any issues. But usually if it's moving towards the end stop, we haven't changed anything in the code that would have changed the direction of the motor. If it's homing in the correct direction towards the end stop and it's crashing, that means that your end stop switch is not registering the actual press of said switch. So it could be either the switch is going out, it could be that there's an issue with the wiring between the switch and the board. That would be where you want to start, is just do an M119 test. So if you have the board connected to a computer, or if you have Octoprint, there's the serial console. You can just do the M119 test and see. And actually, I can I have my little Ender 2 Pro sitting here. I could show you how that looks. Let me just get it connected up to my computer here, because this is a very, very good thing to know about if you're trying to troubleshoot homing issues, and even just verifying that your firmware setup is correct. So let me show you how that looks. So dang, upside down ports. All right, so let me pull this up here. I'm just gonna use Simplify 3D since this printer is literally just sitting on my desk here. So here we go. So I'm gonna switch over here. I'm gonna go ahead and connect to the COM port. If you see here, if you have multiple COM ports listed like I do, my motherboard actually has a physical serial port. It's like a workstation board. You'll see that I have two COM ports. So if you're not sure which COM port you have, just unplug the printer, hit refresh, and you can see number 4 disappeared. So my printer's number 4. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that back in, hit refresh, and then COM 4. And I know the Creality printers, they use a baud rate of 115/200. And I'm going to go ahead and hit connect. So if I go ahead and do an M119, we'll see here that X, Y, and Z are all showing open. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hold down my X end stop and send M119 again. And you can see here it's showing triggered. I'm going to let it go, and now it shows open. I'm going to do the same thing for my Z. Triggered, let it go, open, and same thing for my Y. So that's how you test your end stops. Just a simple M119 command. If you have like an auto bed leveling sensor like our Easy ABL or the BL Touch, you can also use that to test to make sure that your communications between your probe and the control board are working. If you have a filament sensor, which this printer does not, you can also test the filament sensor the same way. The filament sensor is just an end stop as far as the firmware is concerned. So, and this is for Marlin firmware. Most other firmwares typically follow the same G-code naming convention, but the M119 is a very helpful thing to have if you're trying to troubleshoot issues. So, you know, and always start at the, you know, the most basic of things when you're troubleshooting. You know, start with the physical printer, the cabling, the physical switch, that kind of stuff. You know, it's also possible that if you do the M119 command and you're pressing down on it, it might register, but when the carriage is hitting it, it's not registering. That would indicate that just the switch is wearing out. Now, one thing with the Creality printers, if you put on an auto bed leveling sensor like our Easy ABL Pro or even a BL Touch, and you took your end stop off, which you should, the Creality printers actually use the same end stop board for the X, Y, and Z for like almost all their printers. There might be some that have a different one, but in general, they have that same end stop board. So meaning if you took that end stop switch off to put an auto bed leveling probe on, and one of your X or Y goes out, you can swap it out. So you basically have a spare. So, all right, let's see. Jonathan Barnes is asking about a 3D print cover your motherboards. I'm not sure what you mean by that. So if you want to clarify further, go right ahead. All right, JCRC says, I'm adding a second Z-axis to my Ender 3 V2 with a second stepper motor on a Y wiring harness. Any change I need to make on the 422 motherboard to simultaneously drive 2 steppers from the Z output? So if you're using a wiring harness that is serial wiring, you should be fine leaving the board alone in terms of like VREF. If you are going to a parallel one, which is fine, I have printers wired both ways. If you have a parallel wired one, you're going to need to increase the VREF a little bit. I usually go up about 0.3 volts on the VREF, and that's a little potentiometer. So on like if you're on the, I think you said 422 board, I have a 427 here, which is the same layout. But if you look on the little drivers here, let me switch over to my other camera since I have it on. If you look by the side of the drivers here, you have little potentiometers here. So you see these labeled here. You got RP4, RP3, 2, and 1. These are how you set the VREF on the Creality boards. So versus like on our Easy board, if you notice, we don't have those on there because they're controlled via software. That is one of the downsides of the Creality boards is if you need to adjust your VREF, you literally have to get a screwdriver out and turn this little guy here. So your Z would be the third driver over, and they are labeled. So you X, Y, Z, E, and you put a multimeter probe tip, so the positive probe tip touches the top of this to get your VREF reading, and then you just pull your ground from anywhere else that's ground. I usually pull it off the negative on the screw terminal here, and then you take your reading, see what it is before you adjust it, and then just turn it just a tiny bit, like we're talking a minute amount, and then take the reading. So I would go about 0.2, 0.3 volts up, and the reason you want to do this is if you have them in a parallel wiring scenario, your motors are going to get half the torque, or give out half the torque or half the current that they normally have. So upping the VREF will give them more current, which will give the motors more torque. So if you go from one motor on one driver to 2 motors on one driver, and they're parallel wired, you could have a situation where it's not going to be strong enough and you're going to lose steps on that axis. So let's see here. Yeah, I don't want to be like mean or anything. If I haven't said anything about like the new products or stuff we're working on at the beginning of the stream, I don't have any updates. So John was asking about the Ender 5 dual Z mod. Sadly, it's been shelved right now just because I don't have enough time to properly execute it. It sucks because I have all the parts, I just haven't had enough time to get caught up with all the other things. So, you know, a lot of my time during the day is spent proactively and reactively handling things that come up throughout the day, so I don't have too much time to tinker with things on a day-to-day basis. And I'm in my later time when things are more calm, I've been working on firmware and trying to get through the backlog of printers we have literally piled up here. So, all right, James, I'm sorry, Ben Huniak. Sorry if I butchered your last name. He says, what fan do you recommend for the Ender 5 Plus board fan, not the hot end fans? If I'm correct, isn't that like a, I think that's like a 40-20 blower fan, if I'm correct. if it is, we don't carry anything like that. You know, your best bet would be trying to, you know, go on like Amazon or eBay, or if you have an account with Mauser or DigiKey, they're like a bulk parts supplier. Trying to find a fan with the same dimensions and voltage. The other alternative would be, which I would probably do if mine died, is just design a mount to put a standard 40 millimeter fan in and put it in its place. Maybe someone already did one. Does anybody know? Because I much prefer just the standard, they call them axial fans. I'm trying to type. If I go quiet and I'm just kind of staring off, it's because I'm typing. Let's see. Thingiverse, Ender 5 Plus board fan. Has anybody made a little fan for the board fan? Doesn't look like it. Maybe I'm using the wrong search terms, but yeah, those are basically options. Either design something or pick up a fan remotely. Mine has actually been good. I did hear some noise coming from one of the fans a couple of days ago on my 5 Plus, and I've been using that machine heavily. I don't know if it's the power supply fan or the board fan, but it went away and it's still working. I should probably take it apart and check, because either it's just started working again or the fan died completely. It's a 50-50 shot. Let's see. Matt Madoob, I just finished building my first, he said fish computer, but I'm assuming he meant first, in 10 years. That's awesome. I actually have a computer. I got a bunch of parts that I need to put together. I've got a 5900X build that I'm putting together for I'm setting up a second office downstairs in the basement for when I just want to not be out here. So if I'm just working on code or, you know, stuff that doesn't require me to be playing around with the printers or soldering and stuff, just have a little office down there. But I'm building a second computer down there, which reminds me I have to order one of these cameras for it, because I will do streams down there from time to time. But yeah, I love building computers. This computer I built, basically if I'm doing something higher end, I will build a computer myself. In our shop, I don't know if you guys know, or know of these, but in our shop, I actually buy a lot of HP business line computers that are off lease. You can usually find them at Micro Center. For fairly cheap. They're, you know, 2 or 3 generations old on the processors, but for, you know, even just, you know, light fusion work and day-to-day office stuff, you can get really nice computers for around $200 to $300, if that, that are still plenty fast. So I've been a big fan of HP's Bizline stuff. I don't know if many of you guys know, but my background before I started TH3D, I actually did IT management, and I worked for a couple MSPs, and we were all HP shops, and I'm a big fan of their business line computers. There's a big difference between their business line computers in terms of the quality and longevity and their consumer ones. I will not touch HP's consumer products with a 10-foot pole. Their business products, on the other hand, they're very good quality. So especially if you get the off-lease ones, you know, an i5 from, like, you know, even 4 or 5 years ago, throw an SSD in there and you got a pretty good system for day-to-day stuff. Let's see. Angry Hobbit says, hang on, I'm gonna take a drink here. Anyways, Angry Hobbit says, is there any benefit to switching from the stock Ender 3 Pro hot end to another hot end, like the tough hot end? If not, I'm planning to convert to all metal, primarily print in PLA. So if you want my honest answer, the honest answer is no. The only time I'll change out the stock Creality hot ends is if I have a catastrophic failure and I don't have any spares on hand. Then I'll put our tough hot end on there, because I have them in stock. But if you're just printing PLA, what I do is like what I did with the Ender 2 Pro here. I put our tough tube on it and I call it a day, because this gives me temperature resistance up to 275C. All of our ABS printers in the print farm all have Creality hot ends with our tough tube on them. The Creality hot ends are fine. They get the job done. If you start getting into more higher temp materials, then yeah, go for an all metal if that's what you're primarily printing. But if you're just printing PLA and even PETG, the stock hot end works very well. They just work. So, you know, but if you want to change it out, go ahead. I'm not stopping you. But if you're just printing PLA, I would save your money for something else. So there's plenty of other upgrades to spend your money on. Dominic Versetto says, I was replacing my part cooling fan. While checking the polarity of the wires leading to the fan, there was a pop at the meter, and now there's no power to the part cooling fan. Sounds like it sounds like something touched, and you probably popped the MOSFET on the board. Depending on the board, it may or may not be worth fixing. But typically, if you heard a pop, it wasn't happy with something, or the wires touched, and your MOSFET that controls that output's probably going to be fried. The only problem with that is that sometimes if the MOSFET gets shorted out, usually sometimes it's just the MOSFET that needs to be replaced, and they're surface mount parts, so they're not easy to replace. But also I've had instances where people have shorted out, like on our old Easy board, the V1s, the MOSFET goes, and then the I/O pin on the processor itself that controls the MOSFET to turn it on and off also gets damaged. It doesn't always kill the processor, but that pin, even if you replace the MOSFET, it just doesn't work because it got shocked. So let's see. Weekend Wrench Turner says, I just picked up tough element hot end for a CR10 V3. Wondering about mounting this. I see the mount by Yasmin, but I'm wondering if there's a preferred one. So our tough all metal hot end, that is just a standard V6 style groove mount hot end. So any mounts, depending on what your printer. So if you have a CR10 V3, so if you find a hot end mount to put a V6 on a CR10 V3, then it will bolt up right in the same dimensions and everything. So the stock hot end on that printer is a weird one. It's an MK8 heater block with a V6 style upper. I don't know if the heatsink is exactly the same as the V6. It's been a while since I messed with the CR10 V2 and V3. They have the same hot end. I don't have our V2 anymore. I actually sold it. But you might be able to get away with just swapping it out. Just the thing you want to check is make sure the length of the old hot end from the tip of the nozzle to the top of the heatsink is the same. If it is, you could probably just swap it out. I don't have that printer here anymore to mess with, but there's no like preferred one. I believe the Hero Me mounting system supports the CR10 V3 with a V6 hot end. If somebody else wants to chime in the chat, I haven't looked at mounts for that particular printer in a while, and that does use different mounts from what's the word for it? It does use different mounts for the standard CR10. So even though it's called the CR10 V2 and the V3, they are completely different mounting plates. So you wouldn't need one specifically for that particular printer, just because of the differences in that. Vincent says, I'm having issues with the left side of my Chiron's left Z access motor sagging and not holding Z alignment. How would you correct this, and for other printers of this style? So there's a couple ways I've corrected this on machines that we had. The best way, but it's also difficult because you got to source a belt and stuff, is to take two pulleys, two 8mm diameter pulleys, and a closed loop belt, put them at the very top of the lead screws. You might lose a couple millimeters of height overall, which most people don't use, and then have a closed loop belt between those two so it physically locks them in. The other way to do that would be to put on what's called an anti-backlash nut. I don't believe the ones we carry in our store will fit the Chiron. I think the Chiron might use more of a standard kind of mounting one. I'm going to look it up and see if I can find a picture, because my Chiron is out in the print farm. That printer has been very nice. But you could do like an anti-backlash type nut. So, or like a sync cable, a sync belt, like I was talking. So I don't know the length of the belt you would need. You'd have to figure that out. But I do have that on a couple of my machines here, like my CR10. It's 2 Z's linked. My Easy 300 prototype, it's Z's linked. Bertha's Z's linked. Yeah, so yeah, that's about it. But the other thing with the Chiron, if you're using our firmware and you have an Easy ABL, you can actually use the G34 command, and it will auto level out your gantry, because it is able to use the probe to determine the distance from the from the sensor to the bed, and automatically level out the gantry. So it's like this: you can run a G34 and it'll do a couple iterations, and then it'll adjust it, and you can put a G34 command in your starting script to auto level the gantry with the Easy ABL sensor. So because that printer, they actually did drive each Z motor separately from a separate driver, so you can actually use the G34 command. All right. Let's see. Again, you guys got to answer, or if you want me to answer a question right here, you got to put an exclamation point Q in here, so it shows up in my on my side here. So the bot will take your questions. Solomon is asking, he said, is there an easy ABL mount for the Printer Mods MDD 1.3 plate? I have an Ender 3 Pro with a BMG V6 mounted on their plate. I'm just missing a mount for my easy ABL. I'm not sure because I don't use that product, but if memory serves correctly, don't they have stock mounting holes for like the Creality shroud, if memory serves correct? Because if it does, then you could use our standard, what we call the OEM mount, that would bolt up to the factory shroud backplate type of thing. So, but all you need to do to design a mount, if you guys haven't played with Fusion, it's actually free for personal use. And even if you're a company, as long as your revenue does not exceed $100,000 a year, it wouldn't be that difficult to make a mount, because literally you just need something that's going to have the screw hole attachment points to put it on the plate, and then a hole to hold the sensor. So our standard Easy ABL, the 18 millimeter, when I'm speccing out mounts, I usually do about an 18.35 millimeter hole in the mount, and that gives us enough tolerance to account for what's the word I'm looking for, to account for like printer variances and just tolerances on the actual sensor itself. So let's see here. Glenn is asking, have I ever used a Qidi X-Max printer? What are my thoughts on it if I have? I have not, and I don't like giving recommendations or feedback on a printer unless I've actually had it here and played with it. So those really aren't my style of machines. Those are kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Like a Flash Forge MakerBot kind of clone. They're not very easily moddable. That's the reason I stay away from them. They're kind of like, because of how they design the printer, you're kind of restricted on what you can do in terms of if you want to add auto bed leveling, you want to change out the hot end. It's very difficult versus the extrusion style printers that a lot of the companies have been going to. So JT, have you ever confirmed that the EasyBoard 2 works with the Slice Engineering PT1000? Oh, he had some trouble with the PT1000. So he had weird issues with that sensor on multiple boards. The PT1000 does work. I was able to hook it up to an EasyBoard 2. I actually sent it back out to him. But yeah, the PT1000 thermistor from Slice Engineering does work on the EasyBoard, because it's just a thermistor. It's not like an amplifier board. And those of you that have the PT100 that are waiting for that to be supported on the EasyBoard 2, that's on my list for this week to test. I do have a PT100, and I just need to double check what connections we're going to use for the signal pin, where we're going to pull the voltage and the ground from, and then make the necessary firmware changes. So it's on my list. I'm slowly working through my backlog. Hybotics, are there any plans to make unified firmware work with the BTT SKR E3 Turbo mainboard? I don't have one of those. If somebody wanted to send me one, I'd gladly put one together. But I think they discontinued that board, I thought, because those use the LPC processors, and those have been out of stock for a while. And as much as I would like to, I've done in the past where it's like, okay, I'll work on firmware and then someone else has the board or printer remotely. The problem is I can never get people to get back to me. So it kind of sucks that, I try to get people to work on me with testing. I do all the code, be like, here, or do all the code, and I go, here, try flashing this, and, let me know what works, what doesn't work. Okay, but people are very flaky, I found, and so if I can't get my hands on something, it's more work for me, and it's more frustrating for me to try to do like a remote development than to just have the printer or the board here myself. So if somebody wants to send one out, I'll gladly put together firmware for it. But I don't even know, are those even available anymore? Let's see. I'm gonna check. Those weren't a very popular one. Yeah, those are. I'm looking at them. They're definitely out of stock, and someone has one listed on Amazon for $217. Yeah, no one's paying that much for a Big Tree Tech board. I'm sorry. But yeah, Hybotics, if you got one, you want to send it out, let me borrow it for a couple weeks. It will be a couple weeks, because it will be something I do when I have time. I'll gladly do some work and send it back. So Let's see. Larry, oh, will the Unified firmware be available for the Ender 3 S1? So I talked to a guy who has an Ender 3 S1. He's supposed to be sending me pictures in of his machine. He's been very responsive, so I'm hoping that I can do remote work with him. He also owns a company, and we've been just chatting, so I'm making an exception for that one. I kind of want to buy an Ender 3S1, but I told myself I'm not buying any more printers. I'm not buying any more printers until I get through the backlog of ones that I already have here. So I've got about 8 more machines to get through before I buy more machines. So, John W. Says, I'm a total noob to these board upgrades. I have my Ender 5 Plus for over a year now. I run Octoprint on a Raspberry Pi and love it. What are the main advantages of this board upgrade? I'm not sure what board upgrade you mean. I don't know if you're talking about ours. I would assume you're probably talking about ours. But the main advantage for like going from the stock board to like our easy board, and you're probably gonna have to wait before you can put this in your Ender 5 Plus because we're out of stock on some of the other parts that are required to use it. The main thing is going to be, it's going to be a lot quieter. You're going to be able to also have a little more control over the machine. If you're using a stock Ender 5 Plus, you have the stock touchscreen. I have my Ender 5 Plus outfitted with the version 1 of our board with our LCD conversion, and you get a lot more control over all your low-level settings like your acceleration, your jerk. I believe the stock Ender 5 Plus, it's been a while since I used mine stock, but it had issues with the filament change procedure where it didn't lock the motor, so the bed would drop and it would shut off. But in general, it's just going to give you more usability. If you are wanting to kind of, cut your teeth, so to speak, on doing upgrades and see what you're kind of missing out with, because a lot, these are the style screens. These are referred to as 128/64s. This is a Creality version. The other version is like the RepRap style, which is usually a red PCB. You do get a lot more control over that because the touchscreen on that stock printer is running its own firmware, and Creality doesn't have access to a lot of the system settings that are on there. So when you swap out the screen, this is driven directly from the printer CPU, so you get a lot more access and control over your own machine. So it's really a preference. A lot of people, I don't think we've had anybody really be like, oh my God, I swapped my LCD out to your kit and I hate it over the stock one. It's a welcome improvement, especially if you're used to using other machines that have these 128/64 style screens. So, let me see. Ender 6, yay or nay? Fat Bank. Yes, I like the Ender 6. No real major issues to report, but I do like the Ender 6. The only thing is and I'm probably biased, but going back to the screens, that one comes with a touchscreen like the Ender 5 Plus. I put our upgrade kit on it to change out the screen, and I like it. It's a very nice printer. I use it quite frequently. Matt is asking, don't text and drive, kids. Let me try this again. Just finished building my first PC. Oh, I was only able to get a 6600 XT GPU. I'm going to put an F in a chat because I'm not a fan of AMD GPUs. But I get it, the shortage. Should I upgrade my GPU or build a Core XY? I mean, I'll answer it, whatever. Me personally, I'd probably upgrade it because I know you have a lot of printers. I'd probably go for a GPU upgrade if you can get your hands on something from NVIDIA. The 5900X build I'm doing, I'm putting a 3090 in. And then the other build, this is actually a 5600X build that I just did. That's got a 3070 in it. Here's a little tip, and this is what I did. Sometimes you can find bare bones bundles from places like Micro Center that come with graphics cards and not get reamed on the price. And they're usually in stock because these are actually Asus bare bones kits with the B550 boards. So it came with a decent board, a 750 watt power supply, a liquid cooling system from Asus, a 3070, and I feel like I'm forgetting something. And the case itself, and all the fans, I'm actually pretty happy with it. But kind of look around. I actually found myself looking at pre-builts before I went with the bare bones kits, and I was very disappointed in myself because I hate pre-builts. What are you idiots doing? You guys messing with stuff? I see they've de-stuffed a toy. There's toy guts everywhere. But I will say, don't ask any more questions. I realized we are already coming up on the 1 hour mark, and I started on time. That's surprising. So I'm going to go through the chats here and see if there's stuff that I can answer quickly. So Hybotics asking about special G code if he's using his 5 Plus with the Big Tree Tech E3 board and the Easy ABL. Nope, you can use the same G code that everybody else uses. It's all the same. So let's see here. I'm gonna see if I can get rid of that row. See if we can wrap this up. Emerson has asked, what would cause an Easy ABL 12mm cause my mesh to be in a U shape? 18mm swap is fine. The probe results for the 12, it says a standard deviation of 0.00249. So your deviation is good. I would look and see if something weird's happening, like the cable's getting pulled up or your mount is like not rigid. Usually if you have like weird results with most, like any probe, this goes for anyone, not just our probes, you want to look at your like physical machine and make sure that there's, you know, no mechanical issues, because if you have mechanical issues, it's going to affect how well any probe operates. You know, so if you have issues with your Z, you're going to have poor accuracy. If you have issues where the cables are getting pulled up, it's going to skew the results. You know, in general, your ABL probes are only going to be as accurate as the machine that they're on. So if your machine's got all sorts of weird issues and it's not mechanically sound, where there's problems or things are loose, then you're going to kill the accuracy on the probe and it's not going to work correctly. So I'm going to see if there's any other quick questions here that I can answer before we do our ceremonial dog treat dispensing. I got to find where their sticks are. I think they're in the bin. But yeah, let's see. Any other quick questions that I can answer before I wrap this up? Because I do have other things to do today. Unfortunately, today's one of those days where I have stuff to do after the stream, so I can't go over too much. T Sparky's asking about the VoxLab Aquila and the Easy ABL Pro. Do we have firmware support it? No, but that is on my list of printers that I have on my backlog here. That one's also going to have a 256K and a 512K variant. And I'm hoping that the Marlin builds work on those GD32 chips. They have those clone processors on there. So, Sky Boy asked, do you know of any way I can purchase original CR10 wires? I don't know of anybody that specifically stocks them, but anytime in general, if you guys are looking for like Creality parts, I always hit up my boy Chris over at tinymachines3d.com. He usually has stuff laying around. I don't have anything laying around, but he carries a lot of parts. He might have the wiring harnesses. I haven't checked. But yeah, check out tinymachines3d.com. I met him through Chris is the owner there. He's a good guy. And if you guys are looking for a U.S. company to buy Creality printers from that actually will support them, they're very highly recommended. They also carry, I think, Formbot and Trundun. They carry a couple other brands of printers too. So, but they do like full QC on their printers. So if you basically don't mind paying a little bit more for one of these Chinese machines, and you want something that actually is going to work, and if you have a problem, they'll get back to you, and you speak to somebody in the U.S. that, you know, actually knows what they're talking about, definitely give them a shot if you're looking for like a Chinese printer, but you want an actual warranty and support on it. So, let's see here. So my 5 o'clock alarm just went off, so I'm going to see if there's any other quick questions before I give the doggos their treats, because they've been pretty good today. Let's see. Nick C, he says he's having trouble saving the Z offset on the using unified firmware with his CR Touch on the Under 3 Max. Sometimes it does nothing, and every so often it seems to work fine. That sounds like the EEPROM chip on your board might have an issue. If you have another board that you can swap into that, I would try swapping the board out and seeing if the same thing happens. Because if the EEPROM chip on that board has a problem, it could be losing its settings. The other thing I would say is do a M502 and then an M500 that will completely wipe the EEPROM out and resave the defaults of the firmware to it, and then you can start over with your Z offset. But if that chip is failing, or it's, you know, got a bad solder joint or something, then that could contribute to having, you know, these weird irregularities with its saving. So I'm going to cut those off here. If I didn't answer your guys' question, we do these every single week on Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Central Time. If you have questions anytime about any of our products, or if you're a customer, you need help support, you need tech support, go ahead and click the contact us link on our website. We do have, I'm going to go over a couple other things here because I forgot to mention them when we started the stream. So don't go anywhere. I do have some other things, and we're going to pull the giveaway winner for January. But we do have on our website now, if you find an actual bug in our firmware, if you hover over the contact us link, we do have a report a firmware bug option. We do also have now a job openings page on there, and we are hiring for a local person here. We're based out of Hobart, Indiana. Can't talk today, apparently. So if you guys are interested, this is a entry-level job. This is not like a high pay job. This is basically somebody to help out in the shop. It's very basic, but we do like to promote from within. So if you want to get in with us, you're younger and you are looking for an entry level job to kind of get your feet wet, and you like printers, just let me know. You can just put your application on the website here, and we're also going to be posting out to other job sites, but I want to just specifically mention it. So, cause I know there are some people that aren't too far from us. So, let's see here. I'm going to export. I did already export the giveaway. So let's pull the giveaway winner for January here. And it's like the first week of February too. Really, dogs? Come here. They're like, of course we want to go out. Dad is streaming, even though we just went out before we started the stream. So, all right. Let's go ahead and pull up the wheel of names. Hi, Enzo. Let's see. Isn't it wheelofnames.com? Yeah, it is. It's the one I always use. And go ahead and copy everybody's name in here. And we're going to go ahead and paste it. I'm going to go ahead and screen share this. Where's my main monitor button? There it is. All right, so let's see who wins the $150 gift card to our shop. And we did just restock easy boards too, so if you win, you can get an easy board with that gift card. Let's see. Raymond Beauchamp. Are you watching, Raymond? Because you're the winner for our last month's giveaway. I'm going to go ahead and just make myself a little note here on my my spreadsheet, so I can go ahead and contact them. So even if you're not present, it doesn't matter. I have your email, and you'll just get a gift card showing up in your inbox. And now for the ceremonial distribution of the dingo sticks. Do you want a dingo stick, Remo? He's like, hell yeah, Dad, I want a dingo stick. Hey Google, turn off night mode. What? Oh my God. Enzo's like, oh my God, Dad, you're not paying attention to me, father. Where's your dingo sticks? Where's the dingo sticks? Where did they go? Oh, we got bully sticks. We got bully sticks today. Which, I think it was Tom. He was in the chat the other day. We're out of dingo sticks. We're out of dingo sticks, the humanity. But we have exactly 2 bully sticks left. Can you guys come over here? Can we sit? Enzo, can we sit? There you go. Good boy. Remo. Shh, speak. Remo, speak. Hey. Don't, no. I'm right here. Speak. Come on. Good boy. There you go. There's yours. All right, everybody. Enzo's not very food motivated, so he dropped his, but he's being a good boy. Woo! Look at that. We're a little bit heavier than we were about, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'll have had him for a month on the 14th. Hi. But I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Also, if you guys want to get notifications for the live streams and any new videos we post, in the description, there is a link for YouTube notifications, and it's also at the very bottom of our website. So we send out email notifications anytime we post a new video, and a minimum of a half hour before any live stream. So if you guys want to get a reminder, go ahead and sign up on there. We got almost 600 people on that list. I did send out today's list to everybody on our mailing list, on our general marketing list, along with the YouTube notification list. And I do that once in a while just to remind people that, hey, we do have this other separate list that if you want to get updated, you can. So I hope you guys enjoy the show. Like I said, we do this every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central Time for about an hour. I'm sorry if I didn't get to your question today. I only got so much time for the streams, and I got to go do other stuff. So hope you guys all have an awesome week, and I'll talk to you later. As always, happy printing.